What's up, you guys? Adam here with Anabolic Climbing, and today it's long overdue. It's time for the GHK Copper Overview. So, if you guys are interested in other interesting compounds that could potentially be helpful for skin and tendons, if you guys like my anabolic reviews, please do not forget to hit the like, subscribe, and comment. It helps this channel out a lot. So, without further ado, let's talk about GHK Copper, the blue compound that soccer moms have been pinning in their foreheads to try to get better skin. So really quick, what is GHK copper? The short answer is it is a specific type of copper peptide that is usually found in saliva. It is endogenous, and it tends to downregulate as we age. It seems to have impacts on inflammation, has synergy with BPC 157 and TB 500, and additionally, it has some really unique properties, both in terms of angiogenesis, in terms of increased collagen production, both in skin and in tendons, but also really unique impacts on gene regulation, which I actually reached out to a couple doctor friends to talk about. So let's go into some of the high-level overviews of the research itself. Let's have a better understanding of what's going on with GHK copper. And yeah, then from there, let's figure out if it's a thing that we should leverage, and I'll tell you some of my experience with it if you guys aren't already familiar. So, just going into some of the history of it, essentially, we find that it's really helpful for wound healing and tends to decline in age, like we mentioned before. As far as endogenous concentrations, it seems to peak at around 200 nanograms per milliliter in young adults. And it goes down, I believe, by 75% over age. Looking at it strictly within the 1 or 2 rat studies that I could find about its impacts on tendons itself, they basically did a couple of different studies. This study basically went into the knee laxity that happened after an ACL reconstruction. They gave, I think it was 0.3 milligrams to 3 milligrams of GHK copper after week 2, once a week for 4 weeks, and then this was after the ACL, and then they harvested the ACL to see if there was an increase in essentially structure and overall quality of healing afterwards. And in the post 6 weeks, the GHK copper had a smaller side-to-side difference in knee laxity compared to the saline group, but there was no significant difference at the 12-week post-op as far as the graft complex. The graft complex did have a higher level of stiffness, which is potentially something that we would want, but there was no significant difference in the ultimate load and the gait parameters of the ACL. So basically, for using it as a mechanism of improving surgical outcomes, it didn't seem to be that much better, although it did improve overall stiffness. Is this a thing that's synergistic with BPC 157 and TB 500? The peptide community seems to think so, and there's some actual research later on that shows that it seems to be synergistic, but as just a raw healing tool, it doesn't seem to be deleterious to the tendon, and it does seem to increase stiffness, which on paper at least is something that we want. Initially, it does tend to stimulate type 1 and type 3 collagen synthesis in the mRNA by 220% and the tropoplastin by 180%, at least in fibroblast cultures. It does increase TIMP1 expression, and it says it improves the active ECM integrity, but I haven't seen a biopsy to confirm. I would be really interested if anyone has any studies on tendon biopsies with GHK copper. Additionally, it seems to upregulate VEGF-A and FGF2 transcription as far as wound healing. So if you have flappers, if you have, on paper, it might be able to heal it faster. As far as tendon healing, it basically enhances type 1 collagen synthesis, and it claims to have increased biomechanical strength by 30% at day 21. I have not seen a tendon biopsy on that, but that is really interesting. I have seen from multiple people increases in hair density. So if you are one of those folks that's prone to hair loss, it's potentially something that could help regrow hair. But I've also seen dudes that are bald AF that run this that continue to be bald AF. So I don't know how much I would replace your minoxidil or your dutasteride or finasteride with this. What's really interesting to me is the fact that this molecule is smart enough to work both subcutaneously as well as topically. So this was one of the things, actually it's the only thing that I've ever injected that hurt so badly that I never injected it again. When I pin this in my forearm, and I still kind of have a little bit of an increase in the skin thickness, dude, it burned me from the inside out. This shit hurt so bad. For 24 hours, I felt like it was trying to burn away through my skin. I have heard folks try to combat this by increasing the amount of bacteriostatic water, and they just dilute the hell out of it, and that seems to help. But if you guys look online, there is no shortage of images of people having welts and bruises from pinning GHK, and it just burns because it does. The best way folks seem to mitigate it is by pinning their glutes, and it seems to be more tolerable. But this is not a compound that I plan to pin again because it hurts so goddamn bad. I'm going to be testing a topical solution later this month, and I'll be giving updates, both in terms of what it does to the skin integrity of my hands as well as my face. Also, I'm going to use it for a couple of acne scars and see if it has any impact there. But the short answer is, even if you put it on topically, it will still go systemic. As far as that goes, it appears that the half-life is at about an hour and a half in rodents, 2 to 3 hours in people, and you can use twice daily either sub-Q injections, which would fucking kill me personally, or you could apply it topically twice daily, which I will probably be doing. It said that there's peak ECM gene upregulation 4 to 6 hours post-dose, returning to baseline by 24 hours. I wonder what that does for prolonged exposure. I wonder if this is something that can have longer lasting impacts on the gene expression afterwards, because we don't have any of that data in humans for long-term bases. In the event that you're trying to compound it yourself, the pH optimization is between 5.5 to 6. I'm buying one elsewhere at a 0.1% GHK solution. So that's what I'm going to be using. I might double up and try to get something 2.2, but I'll see if I can get that customly compounded elsewhere. Could you use microneedling for it? Yes. Will I be doing that? I don't know. What's really interesting is it has a symbiotic relationship with hyaluronic acid. So if you're so when I use this on my face with a hyaluronic acid solution, I'll let you know if it helps or not. Next up, it's going to help nails, which is cool. The help on spinal cord injury is really interesting, and its help with neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's is also interesting. Part of me wonders if it does help with that, if it would pair well with a methylene blue or a selegiline or other things that are known to help Parkinson's or Alzheimer's patients. But I have not, it's been a few years since I ran selegiline, and I have no intention of running methylene blue in the short term, but just things to consider. I also wonder if it has kind of the similar impact of having a Red Bull with your coffee if you were to stack that, because I know that it does have impacts on the cholinergic system. So that's a thing to be mindful of. And again, it seems to have a multiplicative effect on healing with BPC 157. And it says CJC, but I'm going to assume that it works well as far as the anti-inflammatory models with growth hormone as well. Lastly, here's the one part that I actually reached out to a doctor for and a couple of med students to get their feedback on, and I'm going to give you my interpretation. I will be circling back on their feedback later. So this is the percentage changes to gene transcription, either upregulating or downregulating, and this is kind of out of my pay grade. Upregulating the opioid receptor seemed spooky to me on its face. But as I kept reading the study, it actually gave a better breakdown. And again, I want to circle back, so don't take all of this to the bank. But basically, hitting the opioid 1 receptor seems to be more beta endorphin driven. So in theory, the sense of well-being folks are getting might be from an upregulation in endorphins. And what I was concerned about with the opioid kappa receptor, it actually downregulates. And I'll tell you why that's ideal for us. So the reason you don't run opioids all the time isn't just because it feels better than your life, but in the event that you ever had a catastrophic injury, you'd want those receptors to be fresh so that you could provide opioids to stop the pain. The last thing you'd want is to have a broken arm or a broken leg and your pain medication not work. So the fact that it's down-regulating the opioid receptor makes me think that it might potentially allow for the pain medication to work better. And the fact that the upregulation on the opioid 1 receptor would probably just be driving more endorphins rather than just down-regulating your pain tolerance, which wouldn't be great. Additionally, I am still concerned about the chronic anti-inflammatory properties of it because you still want the inflammatory response to help with remodeling and reactions to training. But it would kind of remain to be seen if we see performance increases on this or not. With that said, I kind of want to give this its best opportunity to thrive. So I will be stacking this with growth hormone to see if we can get optimal tendon remodeling on it, obviously optimal skin results as well. And yeah, as soon as I start the experiment, I will be documenting it both here and on Instagram, and I will check back here. Anyway, I just wanted to give you guys my feedback on it. I'm looking forward to trying it topically versus trying it injectably, which I will not be doing again. That shit hurts. If you've used GHK Copper, please let us know in the comments. That stuff helps a lot. But yeah, I'm out with anabolic climbing. Finally getting over the plague, thank God. Wishing you guys good luck, good health, and happy sending, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.